So related to this is the whole issue of contraceptives. Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting. And it's another issue that's very interesting. But you will find it, I think, very smart. I think it's a smart decision. But we'll be releasing it very soon.
Yeah, Donald Trump saying he has a policy coming on contraceptives, access to contraceptives coming. That's what is always, something always coming. But that is what's coming. If the Republicans take power this fall and flip the Senate and hold the House, they're going to have bans on abortions. They're going to have bans on in vitro fertilization, IVF. They're talking about bans on contraception, folks. Contraception, since we've had the pills since the 70s or 60s, it's outrageous what they're putting into their monstrous plans. And we've talked about it a lot. The Republicans desperately want to take the Senate this cycle. And it's and so they can do all these monstrous plans. But you know what? It's not going to be as easy as they hoped it would. In Delaware, they are facing one very, very capable and dedicated opponent for their Senate seat. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester has been literally a lifetime of public service behind her, and is now stepping up to fill the soon-to-be vacant seat of one of her mentors, actually, Senator Tom Carper. She was the first woman and the first person of color to represent the first state in Congress. And now as she's in the fight in a key state, the Democrats need to hold this cycle. And I really want to get her in the hot seat to have a conversation and learn more about what she's doing. So here we are. I am Fred Wellman. I'm host of On Democracy, the FP Woman, right here in the MeidasTouch Network. And this is In the Hot Seat with Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester. Representative, I'm so happy to have you here on the MeidasTouch Network. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time for us in the middle of the campaign. And it's great to meet you finally.
Thank you, Fred, and it's good to meet you too. I want to start off by saying this morning I had breakfast with a veteran, a Vietnam veteran.
Oh.
And he was telling me, he was saying, Lisa, when you're talking to veterans, we don't need to hear more talk. What was really good was the PAC Act. And I wanted to thank you for your advocacy for the PAC Act, and also thank you for your service. He said, that's enough. Thank you for my service. I want to see what you're going to do about my service. And so I wanted to start off by saying thank you so much, Fred, for your service, but also what you're doing right now for our country, because this is so important in such an important time. So I'm glad to be on your show.
Well, that means the world to me. I appreciate it. And the PAC Act, and we just heard the announcement that 1 million veterans have signed up under it. It's one of the largest increases in veterans benefits. You were a big part of that. You voted for it. And along those lines, you've had a lifetime of public service. I was looking at your resume, ma'am, and you've been in and out of, even when you're out of government with Metropolitan Urban League in Wilmington, you're still serving people in public service. And now you're in the fight for a historic seat in the Senate. You would be a historic candidate, the first Black woman from Delaware. I mean, it's exciting. What drove you to take on this tough race?
Yeah, well, as you were teeing that up just now, I was thinking about jobs. I think I started working, I was either 14 or 15. My first job was McDonald's. And it seems to be a common thread through a lot of my jobs is jobs. And so for me, when I think about this journey, it began as a grad student, the journey into politics. I was a grad student. I had my 2-year-old son on my hip, and I was pregnant at the time, and went to a town hall meeting. And I met our then-Congressman, Tom Carper, who is today our senator. And so at the town hall afterwards, I just said, I want to be involved. I want to, make the world a better place. And he said, well, you should apply for an internship. And that internship turned into becoming a caseworker in the congressional office, helping people with Social Security disability, helping people who became unhoused. And I got frustrated with saying, get on waiting lists. And I said, can't we do something to create housing, or can't we do something to help our communities? And so I became the person doing the federal grants and helping communities. And then he became governor, and I served in his cabinet as Deputy Secretary of Health and Social Services, where I got to see the impact of everything from substance use disorders to mental health to health disparities. And then from there was appointed Secretary of Labor, my favorite job, connecting job seekers to jobs and employers to folks and dealing with discrimination. Then our first woman governor came in, Ruth Ann Minner, and I was appointed head of state personnel, hiring, firing, training, culture. I even had to investigate the state police for racial and sexual discrimination at that time. And for me, it was, I'm doing this investigation. Anthrax happened, 9/11 happened, all of these things. And I turned 40. I was like, I need a pilgrimage. I need to get out of the country for a minute. And I ended up getting an assignment for 3 months. I was on leave from Delaware for King Abdullah's poverty alleviation strategy. And I was advising the Minister of Labor in this country where it was just Islam, Judaism, Christianity, all intersected. I float in the Dead Sea. I'm in a desert in Wadi Rum. We raised the minimum wage. We had a national workforce, women in the workforce roundtable. And I came back changed, and I changed everything. That's when I went to the Urban League, the nonprofit sector. That's, I quit my job in state government and worked on, really helping our communities of color in education, health, and economic development. And then after about 2 years, just like a Beyonce song, I just fell in love with, I had been married, I got a divorce after 20 years, and I fell in love with my soulmate. And I ended up quitting my job, selling my house, and moving to Shanghai, where Charles Rochester was working for a French electrical manufacturing company. Fell in love. Over there, wrote a book with 2 other women about reinventing yourself. Came back home, and as you know, my husband went on a business trip, played a game of basketball before his meetings, and ruptured his Achilles tendon. And over the course of a couple of weeks, blood clots went to his heart and lungs. And at 52, the love of my life passed away. And I really wasn't sure what to do next with my life. I was just on autopilot. And I tell people, when you are grieving, I was mad. I was sad. I'm a person of faith. I thought I was going to lose my faith. And it was literally being in the supermarket with a dad and 3 kids in front of me who put back grapes because they were $9 that snapped me out of my own pain. I just said, I'm alive. I can still serve. I can do something, and I'm okay. Charles left this brother left everything in order. I mean, he was incredible. And so I decided to run for office, having never run for anything in my life. My city of Wilmington was being called Murder Town because of gun violence. I was like, I have nothing to lose and everything to give, and I'm going to do it. And I was in a 6-way primary, debating lawyers. People were making fun of me on social media, saying she looks like a deer in the headlights. I was a deer in the headlights. I was scared to death. But every story kept propelling me. Just keep going. Just keep going. And in 2016, we won. And I have been in the House of Representatives since 2016. I came in with "He Who Shall Not Be Named." So I know that
now. Yeah, you do, and now you're running to replace your mentor, your old boss, Senator Carper, and one of the things as I was preparing for our interview, I had no idea that Delaware is the lowest mean elevation state in the country. I thought Florida was, and so that makes it a uniquely pivotal state, I think, in the battle against climate change and having a clean environment. And you're surrounded by water, so I imagine your citizens are uniquely aware of the danger they face from those changes, and that's driven a lot of your work, hasn't it?
Yes. I mean, truly, when Charles died, I had to figure out, well, why am I running? Why me? Why now? And 3 P's came up. One was purpose. That's jobs, the economy, housing, healthcare. The second was peace. That's peace in our communities, with my Break the Cycle of Violence work, as well as peace in the world. And then the last was the planet, because Delaware is the lowest mean elevation state. We got farmers here, so our farmers feel it. We are on the coast because we're urban, suburban, rural, and coastal. So when these storms come, we have coastal communities and businesses that are impacted, but we also have environmental justice communities in Delaware that I've been fighting for, because for them, when it rains, it floods. And we also have communities environmental justice communities that are near toxic dumps or on the highway. And so for me, that's why I got on the Energy and Commerce Committee in Congress, in the House, because I wanted to fight for these things. And I've been able to bring clean drinking water to our state. And this is the kind of work I want to continue to do in the Senate, but at a deep level. Yeah, and
it's such an important time as these issues are coming up. And of course, our opponents, don't even believe in climate change, of course. So
Oh
it is
yeah.
so important. And Delaware, like I've driven through Delaware, I've visited a number of times. It's a lovely state, but it is uniquely facing that. But I also another thing we face with that Senate is I opened with this clip of Donald Trump talking about looking at contraception, and that's everything, right? We're talking abortion. They want to get rid of. They want to get IVF and all reproductive care. They want to get contraception. Women's rights to choose their health care are truly on the ballot, even in a relative progressive state like yours. But you face a national battle, and I don't think Americans understand the danger, right? I mean, IVF is in danger. I understand you just welcomed a grandchild, right, yourself, and so you got a personal stake in this now, don't you?
I do. I mean, first of all, I've got a daughter and I've got a daughter-in-law who I call my daughter-in-love. And for me, as you said, this is really on the ballot. People just assume that Delaware's a blue state. Well, first of
Right.
all, only 3 counties, and we vote blue, purple, and red. That's how we vote. That farming community is more Republican.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and so for me, I'm running statewide in the past and plan to, but this issue is one that cuts across. I mean, this is about our reproductive freedom and our autonomy, bodily autonomy. And as you said, the title of grandmother, my favorite title of all those titles you mentioned, came to me last year, and it came because of IVF. Had it not been for IVF, my granddaughter Lennox wouldn't even be here. And so for me, we're fighting for IVF, we're fighting for abortion care, because the people most at risk are women of color, women in rural areas, birthing people who are poor and don't have access, and young people. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the ones most affected. So between abortion care, IVF, and birth control, we're going to stand up and we're going to continue to fight. It's one of the reasons I'm running for the Senate as well.
Well, it makes absolute sense. Now, one thing I was talking to your team about this is and we've heard in this conversation already, I think, that the thread through all of this and the thread through much of your work was jobs at the beginning. But you also say a lot about healthcare, right? I mean, in many
Yes.
ways, I know it's almost every answer you just gave me, ma'am, healthcare was threaded in there, right? That even with environmental policy, it's because people are being exposed to toxins.
Right.
Women's rights is about healthcare. A job, unfortunately, in our system, most of the time, a job is how you get health access to insurance and healthcare, right? Even with Obamacare. So that's kind of drives. Is that the thread through all of it for you, ma'am? Is healthcare for all and healthcare that it matters to Americans?
Yeah, it's interesting because the thread through my career, I feel like, has been really jobs and jobs in
Yeah.
the economy. And I've done a lot of bipartisan work, even now, on strengthening our supply chains. Like, whoever even cared about supply chains until the pandemic.
All of a sudden, right?
You couldn't get PPE, you couldn't get baby formula, lumber
Oh,
went
I
up,
know.
housing prices went up. And so for me, this whole focus, I've even got a jobs agenda, because to me, this focus on jobs has been kind of a thread through my career. But when I
Yeah.
look at those 3 things, when we talk about environment, there is a health aspect to that. And we
Right.
saw it so clearly during the pandemic, and we see it today. When you look at the issue of jobs and access to healthcare, as you said, when you look at our workforce, our healthcare workforce is very much at risk. And even when I look at my own journey here, I mean, it was literally because Charles had a blood clot. And people don't realize that every 6 minutes, an American dies from a blood clot. Something as simple as a blood clot. And so I've got bipartisan legislation on blood clot prevention and treatment. I even started I call it a menopause movement. We've had Halle Berry come on the Hill, and now I've introduced a companion to a bill that the Senate women have introduced, again, bipartisan. Even my supply chains bill, which is exciting. We just found out that Maria Cantwell and Marsha Blackburn are partnering to do our supply
Wow.
chain bill in the Senate. And so
Okay.
part of the thread too is doing things that we feel we can get done and really make an impact on people's lives.
And that's governing, isn't it? And that's something we've missed for a while. And that's one thing I've heard. And knowing that the gentleman who has that seat now already, he has been one who has worked with the other party where he can find common ground to take care of the American people. It is about going back to the very thing we opened this conversation with, ma'am. It is about service. Be it service to your community, service to your constituents, and service. And it sounds like you're a person who intends to continue to serve, and that's going to be taking you into the Senate.
Yeah, well, as long as people don't take Delaware for granted, we'll be in good shape. And the other big thing, foundational to all this, is our democracy. the ability to vote. And, you know, you probably saw the when I was sworn in for the first time, because we were making history, I wanted to carry something. And on January 6th, when I was trapped up in the gallery, when I heard the gunshots and the banging on the door, I carried with me a document that allowed our great, great, great grandfather, a freed slave from Georgia, to have the right to vote. And we turned it into a scarf that I carried, which is the Returns of Qualified Voters and Reconstruction Oath from 1867. His X is at the bottom because he could not read or write. And I carry this as my proof of what we've been through so that we don't forget. But it's also my inspiration for what is yet to come. So I'm fighting for democracy too.
Well, it's on the ballot, and we appreciate that fight, and we appreciate the fight you've had so far, and continuing that fight. Now, here's the most important question of all. We've had a couple of 10 minutes here to talk. How can our wonderful viewers at MeidasTouch find you, donate to you for this important fight, make sure we hold your seat, and learn more about your campaign, ma'am?
Thank you so much, Fred, for the opportunity and even giving us the opportunity to say our theme is great hope of our campaign. And that's what I want to bring to the Senate. And you can join this movement by reaching out to lisablunt.rochester.com, or you can go on Instagram at look, I got to get it all right, at LBR, because I got another hat too that I wear.
There you go.
And then on Twitter, they can go to Lisa B. Rochester. So again, it's Twitter at Lisa B. Rochester, Instagram at LBR, and you can go to lisablunt.rochester.com and check us out.
I love it. Well, we're going to find you, ma'am. And I hope our MeidasTouch viewers are passionate folks. I know they're going to help you out. What a pleasure talking to you today. Thanks for taking time to sit in the hot seat with us and have this conversation. I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors, and it's exciting stuff.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for what you're doing to save democracy. Take care.
It's a fun job. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Man, what a great conversation. What an inspiring conversation. You could see that Congressman Rochester is a dedicated public servant who's passionate about taking care of the citizens. And what I love hearing from our representatives, especially candidates for higher office, is their passion for serving the people they're supposed to serve. I don't think we hear enough of that these days. So another great conversation here in the hot seat. As you know, we'll be presenting many more of these. If you want to see them all, there's a playlist in the MeidasTouch of all my shows. It's great conversations with candidates and newsmakers and leaders from across the country. I hope you'll tune in for more. In the meantime, I remind you, catch new episodes of my main show, On Democracy with FP Wellman, every Friday night in the MeidasTouch at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for everything, and as always, keep up the fight.